Hey, it's Dave Cribbs here, lead trainer at Auto Dealer University. Welcome to your Workout Wednesday. And today we're going to talk about maybe the sexier side of the business, which is closing, right? Everybody wants to be a great closer, including myself. Don't know anyone in the car business selling cars that doesn't want to be a great closer. In fact, I would say both individually and corporately, we want that as well. So today we're going to talk about how to raise those statistics. No matter where you're at, individually or corporately, maybe with brand new people coming onto the lot, maybe that closing ratio is 15, 20, 25, 30%. Today we're going to talk about how to move that up to 40, 50, 60%, right? And on those appointment ratios, we know typically the average is about 50% closing ratio when we have an appointment. Again, another reason to have an appointment culture, but that's another training. But how about taking those appointments up to 60, 70, 80, 90% closing ratios? Is it possible? And the answer is absolutely yes. We're going to talk about a few things that will help us get there and become much better closers with just a few simple concepts that we can learn today. So today I want to talk about actually the point of what we call the moment of truth, right? When the customer actually closes. In other words, when they cross a plane in their mind. In fact, I'm going to gain agreement with you right now. We're going to talk about the power of agreement in this process. It's one of the big two things I'm going to preach about today. But the idea here is that wouldn't you agree that a customer, any customer, they're never going to move forward. They're never going to sign on the dotted line. They're never going to close the deal until they've crossed a plane in their mind. Now, if you're a student of Auto Dealer University, you know that that's a basic foundation that I always kind of go back to, and that is simply because when working with customer after customer after customer, you begin to catch on to the fact that, hey, you know what? My customer really isn't going to close until they're closed. That only makes sense, right? They actually do cross a plane in their mind. At some point, they look at a deal or they look at the dealership or the numbers or the circumstances and they go, I'm just going to go forward, right? Hopefully with a great feeling. That's obviously everyone's goal and desire. So the question is, if we know for a fact that the customer only pulls the trigger when they cross the plane, I'm going to also gain agreement with you on this. I would even say that the moment a customer crosses the plane is they're going to move forward. In other words, they're not going to stop, they're going to move forward. So if I know this, then I know that my single job as a salesperson, individually and by the way corporately with how we provide support to our staff, my single job is to get the customer to that point where they cross the plane. Now that sounds pretty simple, but as we know, there are a lot of dynamics that occur. So I'm going to talk about the two things that we struggle with the most, but I'm also going to give you two solutions that I think will absolutely change the game for you when it comes to closing deals. So again, we already know the customer's they're gonna close when they cross the plane, which means that it's our job to get them there. Here is the beauty of that. The fact is, we get to choose, we have creative control over getting that customer to that point in their mind where they cross the plane. In other words, we get to create the experience, we get to ask the questions, but most importantly, even more than asking the questions is we get to respond and interact with the customer in the way that we want to. Now, you might say, well, Dave, I can't help it when a customer says this. Well, here's the good news. When a customer says this, or they say that, or they say anything that's less than desirable of what you would want to hear that moves that deal forward, we have the unique opportunity to respond with creative control, meaning that we get to choose how we respond to that customer. So there are a couple things that I'm going to share with you today that I think are the most powerful things that you can do to make certain that you are creating that experience that leads to the customer crossing the plane in their mind. As a matter of fact, definition of a salesman, if you remember that from the very basics of Auto Dealer University, definition of a salesman is someone who can lead a customer or consumer to a weighted decision in their favor. Whose favor? Not ours, not the salesperson, but the customer. See, if I have a weighted, if I've built up so much value and so much evidence that this is the best decision, that typically is what has the customer crossing the plane in their mind. They've fallen in love with the store, the car, the numbers, the whatever it is, right? So let's go back and talk about how we actually do that. What are some of the responses and how do we turn some of these things around? Because typically where we get in trouble is two areas. One is that when we haven't uncovered every stone, and when we've taken shortcuts, essentially, we all know, we can feel it. We know when we're taking a shortcut. We know and oftentimes when we take the shortcut, sometimes it's because we're lazy, but most of the time it's because we're doing it out of fear. We're allowing the customer to lead instead of being the salesperson, right? There's a sale being made every time, right? Either you or them, right? So by definition, the customer, if they lead you to skip a step, they're actually selling you by the definition of a salesperson, right? So let's go back to this idea. Typically, we're going to get in trouble when we shortcut or we skip steps. The other time we're going to get in trouble is when we're struggling with a customer, whether it's emotionally just in our relationship with that customer. We don't have the rapport. We're struggling, right? The customer hasn't crossed a plane where they trust us yet, right? Things like that. So let's back it up all the way to the beginning and let's talk about the very thing that I opened up with, which is getting you to agree, right? I got you to agree that the customer isn't going to cross or isn't going to close until they cross a plane. So if I started by gaining your agreement, where do you think a good place, because I'm trying to make a sale here, believe it or not. I'm trying to sell you on your process and becoming a better closer and how to do that. So I'm trying to make a sale right now, right here. So I open that up by gaining agreement, right? So let's go back to the customer. Customer comes in your store. What are they really ultimately looking for? As a matter of fact, the statistics say that most customers now only visit 1.2 stores, right? Or 1.3. It means that they have so much information before they ever arrive that they typically are just looking for the right place to purchase the car. They've really already made the decision so many times, right? The point is, what are they truly looking for when they come in the store? What they're truly looking for, and by the way, this applies no matter how far along they are in the process, whether it's the first time they've stepped on a lot and they haven't done research, or whether they've done it all ahead of time, right? But here's what they're really looking for. They're looking for agreement. They're looking for a yes, right? They want yeses to everything. They want yes, you have the right car. They want yes, you have the right deal. They want yes, I want to feel good about it, right? So here's what I'm going to share as a big tip. Think yes to every response. In other words, remember earlier when I said we have creative control as to how we respond to a customer? Right? And gaining agreement, how powerful that is, right? Not only do we gain agreement, but we automatically, by default, kind of bond with the customer when we're in agreement with one another. Would you agree? Yes, right? So here's what that looks like in practical terms or in practical sense. When a customer comes on the lot, for example, let's say we don't know anything, they just pulled up, we don't have an appointment, they come in, and we greet them. We say, welcome to ABC Motors. Hey, I'm Dave. You are? I'm Frank. I'm Sally. Whatever, right? And what's the next thing that typically comes out of their mouth? Can you tell me? What's the next thing that typically comes out of their mouth? How about just looking, right? Do we hear that one? Oh my gosh, we hear that one all the time, right? Or, hey, just take a look, not buying anything today. Not buying anything today. Hey, I'm just looking, my wife or my husband isn't with me today, right? I'm just looking today. I'm a few months away from buying, right? We hear those types of things. Now, inside, typically most salespeople react by dropping their shoulders inside, right? We have what we feel inside and we have what we show outside. Here's what I'm going to recommend to you, is when you get someone who's just looking, that is fantastic news, by the way. It doesn't matter if they said, their spouse isn't with them. It doesn't matter if they said that it's going to be a while. Here's what I know as a salesperson. Here's what I know for sure 100%. I know that they haven't gotten to a point where they're crossing a plane. I know that I get to change whatever status they had when they walked onto the lot. I get to influence that. In fact, I'm the #1 influencer in getting them to that point because I'm the one interacting with the customer. Would you agree? Yes, right? So here's how this is going to look, or what it should look like when a customer walks in and says, and by the way, there's no magic, one magic response to a just looking, but I'm going to give you several that you can kind of adopt and adapt that will not only make sense to the customer, but it will lower their wall immediately so that we can begin to actually move them towards crossing the plane in their mind, right? Covering all of our bases, making sure and certain that we're serving them in a way where we provide everything, where at the end, the only logical conclusion is to move forward in the deal. That's what we're doing here. That's what leading is to a customer to a weighted decision. That's called selling. Okay, so let me get off my soapbox. So let's go back to the I'm just looking. So I'm gonna use as an example. Customer walks in, I greet the customer, and they say, "Hey, Dave. No, I'm good. I'm just looking. I'm a few months away from buying." Right? Let's say we hear that response. So how would I respond to that? That's going to make sense to a customer, lower the walls, help me move the deal forward, and gain some rapport right away with that customer. So when the customer says, "Hey, it's going to be a couple months, Dave. I'm just looking right now." Hey, fantastic. This is how I'm going to respond, right? It's always a yes. Yes, of course you are, right? Of course you are. I'm excited that you're just looking, right? That means you came to our place with a desire to possibly buy a car, even if you're not thinking today. We'll get to that part later, right? So here's how I'm going to respond. I'm going to be thinking yes all the time. Absolutely, Mr. Customer, right? So I'm going to say something like, "Hey, I totally get it, man. If you're a few months out, it sounds like we have some time. It sounds like we have some time." You see, here's what I'm going to do. Here are the rules of engagement, by the way. When you decide how you're going to respond to a customer, remember, we have creative control, right? So it's got to make sense. But here are the rules of engagement, something that will give you a way to connect and give the right response. Number one, you want to empathize and agree with the customer, right? Empathize and agree with the customer. You want to agree with the customer. We talked about the power of agreement. Number two is, and this is the one that so many people miss. So many people miss this. This is huge, right? Is take them off the hook. Take them off the hook. I'm going to take the customer off the hook in how I respond. You see, it's okay that we're a few months away. That means we have some time, right? So here's what I did. I agreed with the customer. Hey, I get it. No worries at all. If you're a few months away, no problem at all. In fact, see, here's the take them off the hook. I already agreed with them. I already empathized and agreed. Here's the take them off the hook. In fact, sounds like we have some time. That'll help us, right? So here, when I say sounds like we have some time. Now, what the customer heard, by the way, just to protect myself here in this training, what the customer heard was, we have some time. We have months, right? They just mentioned months to me. I said, sounds like we have some time. For me, time means maybe an hour, right? Sounds like we have about an hour to get this deal going and get this thing closed, right? That's what I'm thinking. I know something is going to change that will alter that customer in what they initially said their status was, right? They were in the market a few months away. We're going to change that status right now in the next hour. So, oh, by the way, I didn't even mention the fact that they could be just saying that, right? Would you agree with that? Absolutely, right? Customers come in, they have a plan of how they're going to respond to us so they're not under pressure. So the customer may be in the market right now actually wanting to buy a car. They just want to make sure we're the right place, so they use the excuse, hey, I'm a few months away, let me take a look, right? So don't forget that as well. So I'm conscious of that as well, but I'm going to save face for the customer, agree with them, and now the wall comes down. And now I can begin to question and qualify the customer. So here's what that would look like again in real time, right? Customer says, hey, you know what, Dave, I'm just looking. In fact, I'm a few months away from buying. Absolutely, no worries. It sounds like we have some time, right? Sounds like we have some time. So glad that you thought of us here. By the way, while you're here today, since we do have some time, while you're here, what I could do is share, what the options are here and give you some examples of what we do here at ABC Motors. By the way, Billy, I guess a couple of quick questions just to make sure I can serve you best while you're here today. and get you all the information you need is Billy, is the car that you're looking for, the next car, is that going to be for you? Is that for you personally? Right? So now I've just asked a magical qualifying question, right? I'm going to ask that. Here's the next thing I'm going to ask, right? Here's the next question I'm going to ask. In fact, you could even put this one first and then ask that question. But here's the next question, and this one is powerful. The next question is simply, hey, Billy, I know you're a few months away. Hey, are you just getting started today, or are you a little bit further along in the process? Now, here's the thing about that qualifying question. This works almost with this. I love that qualifying question because it works with almost any response that you initially get from a customer, right? We just wanted to take a look around today. Fantastic. And then you can go right into that question. Fantastic. By the way, in taking a look, are you just getting started today, or are you a little bit further along in the process? Are you just getting started today, or are you a little bit further along in the process? The beauty of that question is now we're going to have the customer see that was a friendly way of asking. By the way, what's the real question we're asking? What's the real question we're asking? Hey, are you in the market? Where have you been? What have you done? Are you looking online? Have you been to another dealership? Is this your first stop? I'm asking all of those things in a friendly way with one simple question. Hey, by the way, are you just getting started today, or are you a little bit further along in the process, right? So here's how we get here's how we move the deal quickly and move it in the right direction. You see, when I say that, the customer, think about all the different possibilities that a customer may be at, right? So let's just say, for example, that particular customer was up all night last night studying online, found a car that we had in stock, that we're showing in inventory, that we already have a price on. And what they're doing is they're coming in and they want to kind of see first, right? They don't want to say, oh yeah, I'm here to buy so-and-so, right? So the point to that is if I say, hey, are you just getting started today, or are you a little bit further along in the process? I'm likely going to prompt that customer right then and there to say, well, actually, Dave, I did see something online last night that kind of caught my eye or something. Now we have somewhere to go, and we just moved the deal instead of wandering around the lot asking, different crazy questions and trying to gain some rapport to, 10 minutes, 15 minutes in, finally get that information. We're getting it right up front. Okay, so let's skip forward now. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about how we then use this mental attitude of the yes, of the agreement. And again, I just want to go back to this theme, the power of agreement. It's being able to say yes. In fact, the yes agreement will actually arm you, even off the cuff, to come up with great responses. And here's what I mean by that. If I'm thinking yes, 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 yes all the time, and I'll give you a kind of a contrast of what we typically hear versus what we should hear. So let's say a customer says, Dave, you know what, man, I know, you greet the customer and they go, hey, yeah, thanks, let me just start over. Welcome to ABC Motors, Mr. Customer, I'm Dave. And the customer responds, hey, Dave, yeah, hey, no problem. Look, man, I don't want to waste any time today. I really just want to get a price. I really just want to get a price. Has anyone heard that? Absolutely, every day, right? I just really want to get a price, right? So here's how we typically respond as salespeople. Just if you went on to every lot in America, this is what you're going to run into more often than not. You're going to run into questions and explanations when someone says that. In other words, hey Dave, look man, I don't want to mess around, I don't have a lot of time today, I just want to get a good price, right? Or I just want to get your best price. Typically you're going to hear things like, well, do you know what you're looking for? And customer, in this case, knows exactly what they're looking for, by the way. They just asked for a best price and they didn't have a lot of time. Yeah, I know exactly what I want. Great, Mr. Customer. Well, first thing we need to do is we need to pick out a car. We need to drive the car. Do you have a trade-in, by the way? Where are you trying to be budget-wise? You get all these crazy questions, right? They're not crazy questions, but think about how that sounds to that consumer that's really just coming in looking for the least resistance and a yes. And by the way, here's where we get the big advantage in how I'm going to respond to this in just a moment, is the fact that if they're doing it at our dealership, it means a couple things. Number one, it means that they're likely doing it at other dealerships. So we already have an advantage if we can respond in a better way to this customer. Okay, so the other thing is, I'm actually more excited. Remember earlier when we talked about the inside emotion versus the outside, what we first hear or see? We just heard something possibly, I'd say most salespeople would say, that's less than desirable of what they would want to hear, right? But for me, it's the opposite. That's the customer I'm looking for. Hey, are you kidding me? Someone comes in with that kind of an approach, right? They're either expecting resistance, or I can go into all that, but the bottom line is they are the best customer ever. The reason is, if they're coming in hot like that, they're a stone cold buyer, because they're trying to just get to the information that they need, right? They already know what they want. By the way, it's a very good sign that they're highly qualified. That's another story. So I'm excited about that customer. So really, and I really truly mean this authentically, when someone comes in and they say, hey Dave, I don't want to mess around, I don't want to play games, I just want your best price, man, I know how you dealers work, whatever. They could even say something negative like that, and I'm really truly excited to get that customer. Here's why. I know that's one of my easiest turnarounds. And here's how I'm going to react to that. Let's talk about how we react to that. Remember, it's a yes. Inside, I'm actually cheering, not doing the shoulder drop. I'm actually cheering inside that I got this customer. So here's how I'm going to respond. Mr. Customer says, hey Dave, I really don't want to play around, man. I know exactly what I want. I just want to get your best price. I don't have a lot of time, right? Fantastic. That's actually what we do here, Mr. Customer. I can get you a price in just a matter of minutes. In fact, I can get you payments, interest rate, whatever you want that will help you out and make it easy for it to make sense. Let's go find out, right? So let's go find out. And you say, well, wait a minute, Dave. You said that we have to cross a plane. The customer has to be closed. You're going to just, work price or close them on price? Absolutely not. No, absolutely not. What I am going to do, though, is gain agreement with the customer right away. And make them feel that they're actually getting exactly what they want, which is attention to getting this price and getting this price quickly. Now, I'm going to get it quickly, right? I'm going to speed my process up a little bit, but I am not, under any circumstances, going to skip any steps. As a matter of fact, I'm not delivering a price to that customer until I feel that it's justified and the customer has seen the value of that particular vehicle. So how do you do that? Go back and watch our other, because I just don't want to go into that. That's a long, extensive training and we got to wrap it up. But go back and watch 100% demo rides. It really is really simple. I'll just give you a quick gist of it. But you bring the customer right in. By the way, you just did the meet and greet. What's next? The interview and qualify, right? Guess where you're now? Guess where this customer, and this is another reason I love this customer, guess what this customer just set you up for? They set you up for a controlled interview and qualifying process at your desk instead of running around on the car lot. So I'm just going to verify a couple of things. I'm going to make it really smooth so that so it makes sense to the customer. I'm not going to go in, get all their information right up front. I'm actually going to start with the car. Mr. Customer, you said exactly, you knew exactly what you wanted. Let me get you a price on this real quick so that we can earn your business. Here, by the way, tell me exactly what that was. It was a 2021 Toyota Camry XLE. Did you have a color preference? What was the equipment? Okay, by the way, is this car going to be for you, Mr. Customer? Is this for you personally? Yes, Dave, right? Now I've already asked a qualifying question. I'm going to do it as I go, right? And then I'm going to come back. Okay, I'm going to put this in writing for you. Go ahead and give me your last name. Okay, and your first name was Joe, Hey, here's an address, also a phone number. Where can I email this quote, right? Oh, did I just say where do I email this quote? Of course I did. I don't care. At this point, I'm going to bring the customer to a point where they cross a plane and we close the deal right now, right? These are all letting them off the hook type of things, but at the same time, I'm moving the deal forward. I'm convinced that I can close this deal at this point. Okay, so then basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that sheet of paper. I'm going to say, hey, I'm going to go touch base with my boss. They'll print you out something right now. We'll get you an offer right away. By the way, I do show that I have the car in stock. I'm just going to touch it, make sure there's nothing wrong with it, because I'm going to give you a price on a car that's actually here right now. In fact, you can even see it, but I'm going to go touch it real quick. I'll be right back, right? Then you just go get the car, bring it right up front. Hey, Mr. Customer, I got some great news. I just want to verify two things. My boss asked me to verify two things on the car that we have it priced out for you. If you'll just take a look and verify these two things for me, right? Then I'm going right over to the window sticker of the car. First thing I want you to verify is just look. This is exactly what we figured out, what we did as pricing. Make sure on the MSRP, is there anything we needed to add or delete? No, Mr. Customer, no, it sounds great. Fantastic. One more thing I wanted to share with you about this car that most people don't know. Here, sit right here. and then I'm going to put them right in the car. We're going for a drive. I'm going to have my test drive done before I get those numbers. This is all going to happen pretty quick. I just wanted, that's a whole nother training. Go check it out. I just wanted to give you those dynamics. So the bottom line is, every single thing that you come up with a customer, let's take one more quick example of negotiating, right? Customer says, we go to get the write-up, right? Customer says, well, look, at the end of the day, Dave, look, I told you earlier, my wife's not here. I like the numbers, but my wife's not here, blah, 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 right? Hey, no problem. In fact, my boss already knows that your wife wasn't here with you. We completely understand. Happy to make the deal. Anything subject to your wife's approval. Let me ask you a question. Obviously, you know your wife much better than we do. In looking at the deal right now, when we look at this deal right now, you said you fell in love with the numbers, you love the car, everything seems to be right, you just need her, right? Well, if we're not moving forward, by the way, time out. If everything was good, if he liked the numbers, if he truly loved the numbers and loved the car and all that was good, there is a chance that he might actually technically have to get with his wife, and that's completely understandable. But most people at that point, they've already had that discussion with their wife, and we could certainly make the deal subject to the spouse's approval, right? It's still giving them the out to make sure that they accomplish what they need to at home with their significant other. But here's the point. Oftentimes, the spouse is a scapegoat. I'm going to find out right now in this close. So what I'm going to say is, Mr. Customer, obviously you know your wife much better than we do. You say that you love the numbers. You think we did a great job here today. I feel like it's an opportunity as well. Let me ask you a question. In looking at the deal, right now, what do you feel where do you feel her focus would be? Where do you feel her focus would be? I used to say concern, but concern implies that there could be a concern. So I like to say focus now. Where do you feel like her focus, where do you think she would be focused in looking at the deal right now? So that customer is oftentimes going to tell us exactly what his wife or her husband is going to be focused on, right? Well, Dave, I know for a fact she is not going to be happy with $500 a month, and we're at $618, right? He just told me he was in love with the numbers. Now he's telling me actually she's going to have a problem with $500 a month. So there's two possibilities and two possibilities only right now. Either he has a problem with $500 a month, which by the way is extremely likely, or he knows that she will have a problem with $500, which by the way is understandable, being that she hasn't been here to actually go through the process and see the value, right? We'll talk about that. That's another training. But let's say that it's actually him that has the problem, because that's the deal most of the time. So it's him that has the problem with 500. So now what do? I'm at 618. He's at 500. He's got the spouse excuse, right? Now how do I move and keep this thing integral, right? And actually make this deal move forward. So again, I'm going to remind the customer, hey, Mr. Customer, hey, that's completely understandable. I know she hasn't been here to be a part of it. Let's do this. Let's take a look. Are you okay with us taking a look? Think about this verbiage. Are you okay with us taking a look at how we could impact that payment? How we could impact that payment. You see, what I didn't do was I didn't say, hey, well, if we could get to 550, if we could get to 575, do you think she'll go 525? Do you think she'd go 550, right? We're just giving away money for no reason at that point, especially when he might still ultimately be able to make the decision right now. I'm counting on that, by the way, as a first. So when I say, would it make sense, would you be okay if we take a look at some ways to impact that payment? What do you think a customer is going to say that's at 618 that would love to be at 500, and I say to them, hey, can we take a look at some ways to impact that payment? They're going to say, absolutely we can. What could you do, right? But instead of cutting gross and instead of those things, what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip the paper over and I'm going to talk about here's the three ways, here's three things that can impact the payment, Mr. Customer. A little bit more cash down. Well, cash down is going to impact the payment tremendously. Remember, anytime we put cash down, by the way, and I also, just a quick little tip, I always separate the dealership from the lender when it comes to cash down. Again, here's what that looks like. Mr. Customer, one of the ways we can impact it is with cash down, right? So let me just talk to you a little bit about that. Even if you, no matter where you're at with the cash down, let me just share with you how that impacts it. Number one, it gets you more favorable terms with the lender. And keep in mind, Mr. Customer, that we don't care if you put down, here's the big point. We don't care if you put down 0 or $1 million. It's really the lender that'll be looking at that. We're going to go fight for better terms, right? So here are the ways that we can impact the payment. A little bit more cash down. And by the way, Mr. Customer, that doesn't go to the lender. It goes right to your purchase, right? It comes right off of the price of the vehicle. Any cash you put down. So you're getting credit for that immediately, right? Here's the other thing. Here's the big thing. It's going to lower your payments. It's going to lower the payments. That's what cash down has as an impact. The other thing it does, which also lowers your payments, which is a thing that we're talking about impacting this payment, is it gives us potentially much better terms. We might be able to get a little bit better rate, a little bit better term. That's going to impact your payment. Mr. Customer, I know you were thinking about $3,000 down. Is there any possibility you could maybe do $5,500 down? Well, I can't do that, Dave. I might be able to do this, right? Now we're moving that deal forward. Now, if we get to an agreement on a down payment and a payment, if we get to a payment agreement, now we can come back with, again, Mr. Customer, now it's turned from a deal to now an opportunity. Can we go ahead and move forward subject to your wife's approval? Now you're closing the deal, right? Hey, I hope this helped a little bit. I could go on and on. Let's meet again next week, Wednesday, Workout Wednesday. We'll see you then.